Welcome back to Fact Me Up channel. Get ready to blast off into the world of Alien 1 and 2 as we dive deep into 15 mind-blowing facts about these cinematic masterpieces. From the birth of iconic characters to the creation of spine-chilling special effects, join us on a thrilling expedition through the heart-pounding universe of xenomorphs and space marines. In order to provoke a genuine reactions of shock and disgust, the cast were not told that real blood and guts were being used for the chest-bursting sequence. Apparently, this worked so well that Yaphet Kotto went home in complete shock afterwards, locked himself in a room, and refused to talk to his wife for several hours. Despite the widespread belief, the chest-bursting scene was not filmed in one take. The scene was actually filmed twice. On the first take, the chestburster did not make it through Kane's shirt, so the crew needed to reset everything and shoot it again. The failed attempt is visible in the finished film. Since Ripley thought it made it look like the creature was struggling to push its way out, and made the scene look more realistic and violent. It was conceptual artist Ron Cobb who came up with the idea that the alien should bleed acid when injured. This came about when the screenwriter Dan O'Bannon ran into a wall with the screenplay and how to handle the last half of the movie. He needed a good reason for why the crew members don't just shoot the thing and kill it, while still not making it an indestructible monster that can't be killed. The acid blood was the idea that solved this problem.
Molecular acid.
Must be using it for blood.
It's got a wonderful defense mechanism. You don't dare kill it.
The dead facehugger that Ash autopsies was made using fresh shellfish, 4 oysters, and a sheep kidney to recreate the internal organs. Filming had to be done quickly because the organic material would go bad very fast under the studio lights and start smelling really bad. In H.R. Geiger's original illustrations that inspired the look of the alien, the creature actually had eyes. For the movie, Geiger insisted that the creature have no eyes and thus giving the bleak appearance of a cold and emotionless beast that hunts by instinct or smell. Fans have later theorized that the creature's domed head contains sensory organs that allow the creature to detect light and dark, or see via echolocation like bats or electrolocation like sharks. Dan O'Bannon's original draft title for the movie was Star Beast, but he was never happy with it since it didn't quite fit with the atmosphere of the plot. It was only after rereading his script that he noted how many times the word alien appeared, and realized that it was a perfect title. It worked as a noun and an adjective, and surprisingly, it had never been used as a film title before. The blue laser lights that were used in the alien ship's egg chamber were borrowed from the English rock band The Who. The band was testing out the lasers for their stage show in the soundstage next door and lent them to Ridley Scott, who felt that the blue light would add to the scene's atmosphere. According to Yaphet Kotto, Sir Ridley Scott told him to annoy Sigourney Weaver off-camera so that there would be genuine tension between their characters on screen. Kotto regretted this because he really liked Weaver, but it turned out to be a good advice after all, since the tension was there in the end. Kotto also picked fights with Balaji Badejo, the actor who played the alien, in order to help his on-screen hatred of the creature. James Cameron faced a big problem trying to win the confidence and respect of the British crew, many of whom had worked on the first Alien movie with Ridley Scott. In order to try and convince them he had the talent and skills for the job, he arranged a screening of the Terminator for the crew on the set to demonstrate his abilities. However, the Terminator had been a box office flop in the UK when released there some months earlier in January 1985, and most of the crew ignored the invite and didn't bother to turn up. Luckily, everything turned out fine in the end. The knife trick scene was originally supposed to be done by Bishop alone. According to Lance Henriksen, he suggested to James Cameron to have Hudson's hand put on top of his, to which Cameron agreed as Henriksen felt the scene needed something extra. This change was discussed with almost everyone, except Bill Paxton. Henriksen also remembers a long night of drinking after shooting this scene followed by a reshoot of the scene, as it looked too fake when they sped the footage up. He accidentally caught Paxton's pinky with the knife on this reshoot, but luckily it was just a scratch. Lance Henriksen wanted to wear double pupil contact lenses for a scene where Bishop is working in the lab on a microscope and gives a scary look at one of the Marines. He came to set with those lenses, but after a test, James Cameron decided he did not need to wear them because he was acting the character with just the right amount of creepiness already. Cameron later said that when he wore the lenses, it made Bishop look scarier than the aliens. When filming the scene with Newt in the Duct, Carrie Hinn kept deliberately blowing her scene so she could slide down the vent, which she later called a slide 3 stories tall. James Cameron finally dissuaded her by saying that if she completed the shot, she could play on it as much as she wanted. She did, and he kept his promise. Bill Paxton continuously apologized to Carrie Hinn throughout filming every time Hudson had to swear in front of her. Carrie later admitted that she didn't mind, mainly because she really didn't know what any of the words meant. The grappling gun Ripley used at the end of Alien is briefly visible in the opening scenes while the escape pod door is being cut open. The gun was still stuck at the bottom of the escape pod door where it was jammed 57 years earlier. There was a lot of animosity on the set between the predominantly British crew and both James Cameron and Gale and Hurd, neither of whom had experience of working in British studios. In the crew's eyes, Cameron was still relatively untried as a director, as The Terminator had been a box office flop in the UK, which many crew members hadn't even seen. They allegedly mocked Hurd by suggesting she only got to be producer because she was married to Cameron, and they allegedly wouldn't take orders from a woman, though this was more likely due to her being an American, and both she and Cameron had no understanding or respect of the way British studio workers have rights in the workplace, such as finishing at a reasonable hour and allowing for breaks during the day. The crew saw Cameron and Hurd as inexperienced, overly demanding and arrogant, and in turn, Cameron and Hurd saw the crew as lazy, insolent, and arrogant. One of their few allies was production designer Peter Lamont. After the long and difficult shoot, Cameron addressed the crew by saying that one thing kept him going through it all: the certain knowledge that one day I would drive out of Pinewood and never come back, and that you sorry bastards would still be here. Cameron indeed never came back to Pinewood Studios, but he later hired Lamont as production designer on True Lies, and even got him out of retirement to work on Titanic. Regardless of Cameron's personal feelings about it, Pinewood continues to be a preferred studio facility for many American directors.